Hey everyone, welcome to this brand new episode of Phenoms. In today's episode, we're very lucky to have Ryan Grant. He built Vori Health, and they just raised a Series B of $53 million. It's not every day that we get to speak with a founder about that type of journey. So please stick around. Pretty sure this one's going to be filled with tons of golden nuggets. So, Ryan, how do you feel about the latest funding round?
Yeah, very exciting to be able to scale the business and reach more people. And at the end of the day, we're here to help people. And thanks for having me on your show.
My pleasure, absolutely. And I'm curious, I'm pretty sure our guests and the audience is super curious also to understand how was your life like before you even started the business?
Oh, that's such a loaded question. Well, I think all the way back to just childhood till now, I think I always had a healthy disrespect for the status quo.
Love it.
Always would ask lots of questions about why do we do it this way? Why does it make sense? And was always just very curious. So very curious mindset. Started to build my first company when I was in middle school, high school, then got into medical
Wow.
device development, several patents, then got into other types of medical device development with companies being acquired, and then eventually went down a journey of medicine, formerly where trained in neurosurgery, was at Penn and then Yale, and then more recently at Geisinger Medical Center, was recruited there to be their complex spine neurosurgeon and participate in their self-insured employer Centers of Excellence COE program. But also, there's so many problems in healthcare. And so if you just walking around the health system, it's like an innovation lab. Even if the health system's not that innovative in itself, you see problems continuously. And whether it's from patient access to patient care to delivering medicine to the electronic medical record to administrative tasks to the list goes on to payment reform to value-based care. It's endless. And
It's endless. Yeah.
so just mixing curiosity, love for medicine, and helping people, sort of that physician entrepreneur sort of came to be, and sort of view my life in multiple chapters. I'm still relatively young, but there was practicing medicine directly at the bedside. Then there's entrepreneurship and building and scaling. There's investing, there's research. And at the end of the day, it's getting up in the morning and trying to make a difference.
I love it. And, not a lot of people get up in the morning with such a mission. And before we even go further, I'm just curious, you've mentioned that you've built a bunch of companies when you were in middle school. Can you unpack that a little bit for our audience? What type
Uh,
of businesses were they?
yeah, I was learned some basic accounting when I was like 8 years old, and then trained as a digital editor when I was 10 and got certified in that, and then was helping put together medical malpractice cases and just the evidence of how do you present them to a jury when I was very young.
Oh my God.
Um,
That's so young. How
and
did that even happen? How did you get exposed to
a
such
family member
education?
who's involved in that, so he had heavily pulled into that realm. At least I did. My siblings did not. And then just had the entrepreneur bug and got into IT to learn JavaScript, was starting to code websites, and
Wow.
for the rest is history. Just always was curious to learn, discover. If it was interesting, let's let's learn about it. Why do you do it that way? And then just you go down those paths that are interesting. And in terms of building companies or entrepreneurship, I really view it as a mindset of, are you super curious, not only about how you solve problems that are interesting to you that other people also have so that you can impact others, but also just curious about learning about the world, yourself. The more you learn about yourself, the better the leader you become. And it's just a continuous journey of learning.
Hmm. Fully agreed. And can you tell us what happened to these, previous businesses that you've built, either when you were super young? Did they fail? Did you, sell them?
Some still exist where they just trickled along, and old business partner
Hmm.
still runs it and lives off of it, but never got bigger than the ability to support an individual family unit. Others got bought. Others got sold, and then others were just peter along and just never went anywhere. So and then and eventually they just died.
Oh, God. Which
And
one was the
so
most successful there?
that's a good question. I'd have to ponder that one. Because I guess if they still exist, is that success? Even though some of them didn't scale to the level you
Right.
wanted them to back that, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah, and do you remember maybe the things that you've learned from those that you've abandoned? Like you had a moment probably of separation where you decided to just let it go and focus on something way bigger. So, what was that inflection point back in the days that made you decide, okay, the previous businesses are not worth my time. Let's go forward with something else.
Yeah, several things. Are you how passionate are you about it? Like if you're going to try to scale it and reach millions of people at 2 a.m, do you want to be thinking about it? If the answer is no, then you shouldn't. I would say that you shouldn't run that company. Doesn't mean you can't start it or be involved, but you should definitely not run that company if you're not interested to think about the problem at 2 a.m. So you should be obsessed about the problem. Fall in love with the
Absolutely.
problem. Don't fall in love with the solutions. The solutions change, but fall in love with the problem and really, really, really understand it and try to be the best in that. Other lesson is the team is everything. You're only as good as the team. And so making sure that you really have the right people. One of the earlier companies, I would say, that was working with a co-founder with, there wasn't, I just don't think we were compatible to scale. Like just uh, personality clashes, and it's like a marriage. If you're not going to get along well, and you want someone, like if you're going to bring in a co-founder, you want someone who thinks differently than you. You want someone who's a disagreeable giver, someone who will challenge ideas. But it takes a special person who's willing to do that and also just not get defensive when they disagree, and making sure you really have that right person, because the team is only as good as the players on it. And so when you think about execution and how you solve problems, the team, the team is critical. Do you have the right people? Can they really do what you're looking to do? Can you align them around a mission? Because everybody's got to be rowing in the same direction. And then do they have the right architecture, right communication, systems, processes to really have that magic come to be? And are they agile? But at the end of the day, you need the right team who's aligned on the mission and vision and rowing in the same direction. And then as a leader or the founder, you're trying to get folks to reach places they didn't know was possible and achieve things that they didn't know that they could do. Um, and what keeps them going is also then for them to individually be inspired by the mission, the vision, buy into it, have that shared purpose. Because people don't join a startup to have the highest liquid salary. The salary is important, but if you want to maximize your salary, you don't join a startup. Um, sure, if you continue to build value, then you can be certainly rewarded with wealth building through the equity you hold. But if you're looking for liquid dollars immediately, startup is not where you go. And so it's that mission, the vision, the innovation, the team, people attracted to that for a certain reason. It's not for everybody. But so going back to the past, it would be, do you have the right team? Are you yourself in love with the problem? At least if you're going to try to operate the business. Because when the going gets tough, if you're not in love with the problem, it's easy to give up.
No, I love it, absolutely. And when you're mentioning falling in love with the problem, what were the signs in your life that you were absolutely passionate about this? So, did people around you tell you, like, hey, you should invest more in this? Or did you start having clients within that specific niche that, gave you the idea of pursuing
Well,
that specific direction? How did that happen?
you can't stop thinking about the problem.
Hmm.
I think that's always a sign for me. Like you just can't. You keep thinking about it, and you keep thinking about it, and you keep thinking about it, and it's always on your mind. And do you really fall in love with the problem? And you dream about it, you think about it. Sometimes your brain will solution things in your dreams, and you'll have sometimes, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
It's crazy. Did you have some ideas like these during dreams that you brought into this startup here?
I can't point back to a specific use case, but can certainly say that multiple times where these types, even before their companies, get infused into the dreams. And that's also just like, what are you thinking about? What are some of your dominant thoughts as your brain tries to work through those in a dream state? Um, and if, and so yes, those always get pushed into or part of the dream narrative. And then make sure you keep a notebook. Well, in this day and age, you could just have your phone. Um, you tend not to remember your dreams.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
when you wake up, and if there's a solution or there's something that you had an epiphany of, then make sure you write it down.
All right, I see. And I'm just curious. So let's say that you had the idea, but what made you jump, the cliff eventually and spread out your wings and fly in the direction that the startup took you? Like something happened in your life that you decided to sacrifice everything for it.
Yeah, it becomes a mixture of passion and then I think Jeff Bezos, regardless of what you think of him, does have a good quote: minimize the regrets in your life. So when you're 80 years old or 90 years old and you look back upon your life, how many regrets do you have? Oh, I wish I would have done that, this, that, or the other. Well, why not make those changes now? If those are things that really are important to you as you look back, you're not taking your money or your wealth with you when you move on from this planet. And so what's really important to you? Is it your legacy? Is it giving back? Is it having making sure you're around for your family? Like what is important to you as an individual? And there could be more than one thing, but everybody will answer differently. But requires some self-reflection on what's important to you. And things that are not important to you and not urgent, why are you spending time on it? Or can those be delegated or deleted? Like every human being on this planet shares the same amount of time. Everybody has the same amount of time, at least in a day. Doesn't mean everybody lives the same length, but everybody has the same amount of time in the day. And so, what's important to you? And yeah, and then getting past your fear.
Did you have fears when you started Vori, or
Well, yeah,
some that you can share?
I
Yeah.
think if you don't have any fears, then you're psychotic. Um, in terms of, I left, I shut down a lucrative neurosurgery
Wow,
practice
really?
to go all in on this. So you walk away from your surgical practice. Your colleagues think you're crazy.
Absolutely.
Some of your family thinks you're crazy. Like, how could you give all that up? You trained for so long, right? And it's really more of an evolution. But you can't be a CEO, a full time, and a surgeon. There are other physician specialties where you can do 1 or 2 shifts a month that allow you to sort of live in both worlds. But a procedural specialty like surgery, you're only as good as how often you practice. It's like basketball. If you only practice basketball once a month, you're not going to be an all-star.
Yeah.
And so practicing neurosurgery twice a month isn't realistic. And so you have to make a decision. of what you're going to do. If you're going to run the company, you have to step down. And that just becomes back again of what would you regret not doing? And wanted to be able to impact more lives. And I would have regretted not trying to get this off the ground and impact folks. And had I just kept practicing neurosurgery, would have this been like, what if? I wonder. And don't want that type of thought process. I certainly miss operating, but you can't sometimes do everything.
Absolutely. And, this is crazy because when we're looking back in time and, this difficult period where you were basically letting go of the previous venture, where, as you said, people thought you were completely nuts. But look at you now, this is ridiculously successful at this point. Vori Health is on a mission to, completely change the way that your niche and industry is working, right? And of course, looking back, it looked crazy, but isn't this the signal of success?
Yeah, and especially when you have people just try to start copying you, yeah, it's like I'm not looking to be famous. I like to be able to walk down the street and nobody knows who I am. But at the same time, are you impacting lots of lives and really helping people? And in this vertical, which is orthopedics, musculoskeletal, the average person with low back pain gets the wrong care in the United States. It's a lot of unnecessary surgery, inappropriate surgery. And people talk about it, the vertical being high cost, but this is not unique to the musculoskeletal orthopedic sector. People just talk about cost, whether it's gastrointestinal or mental health. Like the whole way we talk about things is dehumanized. No one talks about the end person at the end of that money. It's not just unnecessary surgery that's expensive. It's unnecessary surgery where people with real names who are somebody's kid or grandkid or they're a grandparent died. Like people die from surgery. People have complications. It's not selling ice cream on the street or lemonade. People get hurt. And so if you know that people can die and people can get hurt, you better be damn sure that it's appropriate. That's somebody's loved one. And so really trying to not just humanize the care, but we drive surgery down about 80 to 90% per client. Like I'm a surgeon, I'm not anti-surgery, but like alcohol, surgery needs to be used responsibly. And the notion that we're going to just keep cutting people open to feed a bottom line and keep the health system solvent is crazy. Like I've had people come to me and it's like, well, if you drive surgery down, some of these health systems will fold. Okay, that I said that I don't view it ethical to keep a health system afloat by cutting people open inappropriately. Like, where is the line of like what's appropriate, not appropriate? And if some health systems fail, that's okay. That's progress. That's okay. Like we have to just keep moving the human race forward. VHS doesn't have a purpose anymore. It did. DVDs don't really have a purpose anymore. It doesn't mean they didn't drive value at one point in time, but products and solutions are not designed to last 1,000 years. They're not designed to last 100 years anymore. They're designed to solve a problem, and they might only have a shelf life for 20 years. And with AI, even shorter. Like once the problem's solved, on to the next thing. And so just getting people used to taking a step back. Is it safe? Is it ethical? And if we're going to drive costs down, then someone's going to lose. And you can think about it that way, but it's okay. Should we have subsidized the VHS manufacturers because streaming and DVD killed them? But there's like this notion inside of healthcare sometimes that you have to continuously maintain the status quo, which is a very different type of thinking than you see in other verticals where you're like, great, the flip phone is retiring. Great, the DVD is retiring. This is progress. And so just getting people to think a little bit differently that it's okay if things change, as long as it's ethical, safe, and the human race is moving forward. We don't need to continuously subsidize the status quo.
I love it, absolutely. And you were speaking about the why. In your case, I think you've made it rather clear. And at what point did you decide to just go ahead and sacrifice everything, even though everyone's telling you you're crazy, this is not the right thing to do? Maybe you can share the thought, because I think a lot of founders are currently struggling with this. They're maybe stuck at other well-paying jobs. Family members are telling them to not cross over into this dangerous territory of starting your own business. So, what was the big why that made you go ahead and take that plunge?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think even before I answer that, would say make sure your own finances are in line. It's very hard to make the jump to do something if you're in a pile of debt. And so one of the things did before jumping ship, for lack of a better word, was to make sure I paid off all my student loans and make sure that you clear out. Because part of the thing that I think, at least at that time, and what still holds some of my physician colleagues back who want to make a change, is they're saddled with financial responsibility. They're over leveraged. They still have medical student loans. They have undergraduate loans, and they need a certain liquid income to just pay bills. And if you're going to take I took like an 80% pay cut to come to the startup, you need to be able to maintain whatever lifestyle you want, but you also have to be. Most people aren't independently wealthy. I'm not. I didn't grow up independently wealthy. I had to finance my own school and take out government loans. And then you build your own type of wealth. Can you finance? What will change? But I also see people like, I want to have the expensive car and the ginormous house. It's like, well, if you need $700,000 a year to maintain some type of lifestyle, or 400,000 or 300,000, you're not making 300,000 in a seed stage startup. You're not. That's not realistic. And so what are you going to do to change your lifestyle as you go through this? Like, some founder CEOs make under 100,000. Sometimes they make nothing in the beginning. And so how dedicated you are to the problem, but also as you build companies or find folks who want to start a company from scratch, go and take venture capital money from a third party and expect to make an extravagant salary. Like, you would not invest in that person. Like, the salary is above the passion, and that's just too risk adverse, the founding team. So you would not invest in that.
Yeah, and thank you so much for candidly discussing that part uh, of the question. And I'm curious, by the way, did you try to build up the startup with a bootstrapped approach in the beginning, or did you already think that you were going into this business with the idea of raising funds?
If you're going to scale, you're eventually going to need outside capital. Like, if you think about every large enterprise on planet Earth has raised capital. Google raised capital. Meta raised capital. NVIDIA raised capital. Microsoft raised capital. Then the list just, Boeing raised capital. Airbus raised capital. Like, the list just goes on of anything that's super large has taken outside capital at some point. So the answer, if you want to get big or scale, you will have to take outside capital. Even multi-billionaires go and raise money for their own ventures. They don't just self-fund it. Elon Musk is very wealthy and still has investors coming into SpaceX and his other ventures, even though he could fund it himself. And so, and that helps dilute. So you have a team. In the beginning, you're always bootstrapping, because the question becomes, when should you raise money? And so good time to raise money is like in the very early stages, is when you're ready to try to start to test a hypothesis, because a startup is really just a hypothesis, right? If you
Well
think
said.
about the scientific method, here's the hypothesis. I'm going to test the null hypothesis and see if I have a signal. And so there's lots of market research. It's easier now where AI can help you search the internet, where I think about all the other things done where you're like, did a lot of market research. You would see what's out there. You would try to understand the problem. Because people get caught up in the idea. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's not the idea. It's the execution of the idea. People are like, oh, I'm not going to tell you my idea. You're like, no one's stealing it. Like, it's fine. Unless you figured out how to warp speed or something that completely changes humanity. No one really cares about your idea that they're going to steal it. And so when is it a good time to test it? How are you going to test it? So things I like to do with any new venture is try to find people who've tried this. It's likely someone's tried in some fashion. Maybe they haven't, but find out who failed. And can you get to them and can you interview them?
And did you do that? Did you, find
the company before this one in the staffing space sat down with a founder who failed. And then on this one, also sat down before raising money with Vori, sat down with another founder who tried to build a musculoskeletal care team and it completely failed. And sat down with him twice to understand any lessons learned. And people are usually, if they agree to meet with you, it's sometimes therapeutic for them to just tell their story. And you're not selling them anything. You're just, hey, I want to learn from you. And people can be relatively generous with their time. Sometimes you can explore, should you make that person an advisor? We didn't do that here, but like to try to find someone who's failed. See if there's anything to learn from them. There always is, so that you don't try to repeat their mistakes.
And how did he fail previously? What did you learn from his mistakes that you could transport into your startup and then make sure that you would avoid those?
He tried to do too many things at once, and he didn't raise enough capital.
That's so important. Oh my God, you're definitely hitting, something big here. It's one of these common mistakes that most startups do. They just don't raise enough, or it's crazy, actually. Yeah, definitely want to hear more about that.
You should raise as little capital as you need. But at the same time, like in healthcare, like Vori is a 50-state medical practice. So we have to set up infrastructure to serve the 50 states and the District of Columbia. You have to go get high trust and SOC 2 compliance. You have to do all this compliance certification. You have to prove the model. In healthcare, you have to prove everything new works. Even healthcare has a double standard. If you were to just enter healthcare as a fee-for-service provider in the network, nobody checks your quality. As long as the network's not saturated, you can just take market rates. If you want to do anything innovative and have a different economic arrangement, then you have all of this evidence that it works and that you can have a return on investment and all sorts of things. And then you have to start to figure out how you're going to talk about yourself, which was one of the harder parts. People didn't know how to classify us, because a few things that we were trying to do, and some of it's a little contrarian. We don't believe orthopedics is the right specialty to take care of orthopedics.
Interesting. How come?
And people, when they first hear that, look at you. I don't know if I would have been able to get this pitch as easily across the table if I wasn't on the surgeon myself. And we'll just pick on the United States. The country has lost track that orthopedics is short for orthopedic surgery. Cardiothoracic surgery, heart surgeons are not the right first physician specialist to do cardiology. And I'll be the first to admit, as a board certified spine surgeon, I don't have any formal training in non-operative conservative care. So part of the thesis was, and still is, the United States, and this is not unique, other countries do the same thing, keep using the wrong physician specialist for most orthopedic musculoskeletal. It's like sending all chest pain to the heart surgeon right away.
Why? How come they do that? It's crazy.
So the country has learned primary care, PCP. They learned PT, physical therapy, and they've learned ortho. And that's all they know. Not everybody even knows that. And so we wanted to break a few things down of, are you using the right physician? For anything complicated, primary care is not the right group. They can do a great job with lots of things, but they're not well trained in musculoskeletal orthopedic conditions at large. There's lots of things they can do well, but they're not going to be great at everything. Just like the surgeons are not very good at primary care. Like, everybody has their value. Surgeons at large are not the right physician specialists to take care of non-emergency. If it's not an emergency, why are you seeing a surgeon?
Interesting.
It
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense.
it makes
And
no
so
sense.
we purposely don't employ surgeons. We employ the non-operative corollary. We employ the cardiology equivalent, which is physical medicine rehabilitation, also known as PM&R, also known as physiatry, not to be confused with psychiatry, physiatry, and then non-operative sports medicine. That's the cardiology equivalent. Then the next thing we want to do is actually have physicians and physical therapists and coaches actually practice together, because everybody out there says they have a care team. And it's usually not true. It's usually a marketing game. And what I mean by
That's
that is,
impressive. Most people don't even know that. That's definitely like the secrets behind the curtains of this type of industry
yeah,
that people don't even think about. It's crazy. And thanks for revealing that to the audience. I think,
yeah, no, and it follows.
yeah,
Of course, of course.
yeah,
So first was use the right physician. Then was the chance a physician and a physical therapist talk to each other in the United States is about 0%. Even if you co-locate them, like
wow,
it's like Sbarro Pizza and Starbucks in the airport food court. Even if they're co-located, they might be sharing overhead, but they're not actually seeing patients together. They're not talking to each other. It's very rare they actually communicate with each other, if at all. And they may read each other's notes, but probably not. So we wanted to actually break that down as well. And going back to when I say care teams, we actually want people to actually practice as a real team. And the analogy would be, people listening to this, you might have an accountant who helps you with your taxes, and you might have a lawyer, or you have a handyman or handy lady, or you have a team of people around you as an individual. Are they a care team? Are they actually, do the actual various team members in your life talk to each other? Does your accountant talk to your lawyer?
they
Probably
don't.
not. Does
Nope.
your lawyer talk to the person who fixed your washing machine?
Nope.
No. Do they talk to the person who helps cut your grass? No.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so you have a team around you, and that's how traditionally healthcare has been structured, where there's a team of professionals who are assigned to you. But are they actually practicing medicine together and talking to each other? The answer to that is usually no. And so we wanted to break that down. So, like, our complex patients, they'll see the physician and PT, physical therapist, together. They'll do the care together. They'll examine the patient together, and you can do this on a virtual first chassis. And so as right providers who practice in real care teams, meaning they actually see patients together, talk to each other, and actually communicate as a true team to improve the outcomes, then you can start to do some special things. And then the next thing to do was to start to stamp out paternalism. And what I mean by that is, the healthcare system is not patient-centric. Everybody says they're patient-centric, but it's not
That's
true.
the expectation, right?
Right. But it's not true. We've all been there. Still, you'll still hear the words today, July 2025, either in the digital health world or the in-person world. What is the compliance rate? What is the adherence rate of the patient? Compliance to the
Yeah,
physician or clinician's care plan? That's paternalism by definition.
right.
They did not follow my orders. They didn't do what I bestowed upon them. Versus, we talk very differently. We talk about, what's the participation rate? And if a patient is not participating, what is his or her obstacles? Oh, you actually talked to Nancy, the patient. Oh, her kid just died. That's why she's not participating. She's having a really rough time in her life right now. Traditional world wouldn't even ask Nancy, hey, what obstacles, what's going on in your life? They would just be like, Nancy is non-compliant, non-adherent. And we literally blame the patient at large throughout the world when they don't do what a physician or clinician has told them to do. By definition, that's paternalism. And we don't really believe you can be truly patient-centric if the clinician is always the center of attention and the patient is always demonized for not
Yeah.
doing what they were supposed to do, versus flip that around. The patient's the center of, so that what matters to the patient instead of what's the matter with the patient. Why is the patient not participating? What is his or her obstacles? How can you help them? What's important to them in their life? Oh, they want to walk around the jazz festival with their grandkids. They love jazz and they love holding their grandkids. That's what they look forward to every summer. That's all. That's literally what they look forward to every summer in that 90-day span of summer. That's what they want to do. How do you help them get there? And just trying to really humanize the care. So right care team who's actually practicing together, who actually, if you're going to actually be patient centric, you have to talk differently to people.
Is that what you did? Like on your side, did you start talking with the actual users that you onboard to the platform? You started talking with the clients, trying to understand, the biggest issues right now in the market that they're facing, and kind of adapting what you're building with Vori according to their feedback.
Yeah, and we still get feedback on a daily basis, but the heart and soul of it was make sure they have the right team around them, and the patient's really the center. But if the patient's truly the center, do you actually understand what's most important to that individual in their life? And also just what's most important to them on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And so part of our job is to give people hope. Because people, when they come to medical attention or make a doctor's appointment, or even if there's no clinicians and they're worried about something. A core predictor of conversion to chronic pain is fear. How scared you are, the more scared you are, the higher the chance you'll convert to chronic pain. No one's going to tell you they're scared. You have to make the assumption they are. And so back to Nancy, who comes in with 10 out of 10 back pain. You first you rule out, is there anything bad with her? We make sure we do rule out red flag, make sure there's no chance of cancer, and is she going paralyzed? Rule out dangerous things. That's rare. All right, there's nothing dangerous. Now to do a few things with Nancy. One, you have to teach her where pain comes from. Otherwise, if you don't teach people where pain comes from, they don't have a fundamental understanding. It's too abstract. And so they need some basic education. You also have to do that. If the person has resources, they'll get 1,000 opinions until they hear what they want to hear. They'll go through and so you have to teach them where pain comes from. You have to teach people when imaging is appropriate and not appropriate. The traditional medical community, unfortunately, has trained the world that they think they need an image to immediately look for the cause of pain. It actually goes against all the evidence. You're not supposed to get an image in the first 8 weeks or so of pain, unless you're looking for a fracture, or you're planning an operation, or you're looking for a tumor. Like most of the orthopedic, musculoskeletal, back, neck, hip, knee, hand, foot, shoulder issues are mechanical problems. Image is not going to tell you anything. The analogy would be, you got your car parked on your driveway, the engine is squeaking, and so you pop the hood open, you take a picture of the engine, and you email it to your mechanic.
As if that's gonna help, yeah.
Tell me
I love
why
the
it's
analogy.
squeaking. Yeah, well, I need to examine it. I need to see it. And so you have to teach people what normal is. Like if you're over 30, we're gonna find arthritis in every joint. You have to teach that. People just don't even know that. And I can guarantee next year, every adult on planet Earth is going to have some more gray hair, some more wrinkles, and they're going to get more arthritis in every joint. That's just the human condition. And then you have to also teach people the amount of arthritis you have has no correlation with the amount of pain. Severe arthritis doesn't mean severe pain. They never correlated. This has been studied hundreds of times. Minimal arthritis doesn't mean no pain. They don't correlate. And so just teaching people, like every person you saw in Walmart today over 30's got arthritis, and they're going to have more next year. And they're going to have some more gray hair and wrinkles next year. That's just being human. That's very helpful to people to understand what normal is. And then understanding what's important to Nancy. She really wants to walk her kid Tommy to school every day, but she feels she can't, her back hurts. So her care plan, what matters to Nancy is walking my son Tommy to school. That's literally her plan. Walking my son Tommy to school. There's also back pain, and there's sleep, and there's other types of cognitive behavioral therapy type work in there. But then you also have to understand what scares the hell out of Nancy. Because people have a very strong fear monologue. We all have a narrative in our head. I have a high chance of converting to chronic pain if it has a very loud voice. So as you interview Nancy, she'll tell you when she lays down in bed at night, she worries she's going to end up in a wheelchair like her grandfather, lose her job, lose the house, and never take care of Tommy again. And someone who has a very strong fear narrative almost always will convert to chronic pain. And fear is one of the fastest ways for the brain to make a memory circuit. So you have to concentrate on the whole person, what matters to them, teach them basic education, make sure they have the right team, put them truly at the center using the right language, what motivates them, what doesn't, and then understand their fear and help them unwind. Well, are you going to be in a wheelchair? Probably not. But is that true, not true? Help them walk through what's real, not real, and give them hope and helps them set expectations, because people tend not to do well with the unknown. And people tend to just go to like death and destruction. Like, oh my God. It's all like, and people get just very scared. And you can help people through that. And you can do some remarkable things. About 40% of our patients have failed other offerings, whether it's in-person physical therapy, health systems, competitors, and we'll get them better. And it's not because it's virtual versus in person. It's none of that. It's we organize differently. We practice differently. We talk differently. We try to remove fear. We try to peel back that onion. Physical therapy, this movement-based therapy, is just a component. That's just a tool in your toolbox. But it's really taking care of these people, mixing mind and body. And it sounds crazy to some people, but it works. Like we're getting people that I was not able to get better at Yale because we practiced differently.
No, and I really appreciate this, very candid and transparent way of laying it down to the average folk out there, because most people don't understand the back end infrastructure of this type of business, right? Like it's so alien to them, yet we have this incredibly unique peek behind the curtains that I really appreciate this transparency. And can you share with founders the earliest difficulties that you had when you started raising the funds, like for the pre-seed round back in the days, way before the Series B, before the A? Did you run like a pre-seed, or how was that
Yeah,
journey?
that's a good question. We were originally going to build clinics, and then the pandemic hit. So we pivoted to a virtual first model. We still believe in both virtual and in person. And so that was like, okay, well, no one's coming to new real estate. We need to move the dollars to a virtual first type model. And we've stayed that way. And telemedicine has become a staple at scale across the world and is only becoming more and more of an integral part of people's lives. And so we've stayed that way. But then you had to get into some of the things about, I think one of the hardest parts, besides proving the model worked and finding product market fit, making sure patients like it, and getting as much candid feedback, because it doesn't matter what I think. What do the patients think? And making sure it's evidence-based, helping train the providers to practice differently, because they have to speak differently and unravel some bad habits they've been trained,
I'm
taught in the
curious, Ryan.
traditional world.
You said you were looking for a PMF. At what point did you feel that you had that product market fit?
You're always finding it. Like there's not like this magical moment where you're like, oh, I found it and I'm done. You found it,
Aha,
and then you keep
it's a
finding
journey.
it every week. You keep finding it every week because
Interesting.
things change. You keep making things better. When you have patients who come and tell you they brag to everybody that they know, when you have patients referring their friends and family members, um, where people that you do not know, not your family, not your friends, are willing to tell you, this is awesome. I got really help from it, and I'm telling all my friends about it. Then you have something that's stickier that can help people, because now you have strangers who really are benefiting. So you need the strangers who are benefiting, loving it, and willing to refer or tell their family and own friends about it. So you got to get past, like, because people will sometimes, if it's their first company, will talk to their family, and is your family member likely to really give you the feedback like that super sucks? Probably not.
Hmm.
But a stranger will.
Yeah,
Stranger will. They'll
interesting.
stop using you. They'll tell you you
Yeah.
suck. They'll write a bad feedback. They'll call and complain to customer service. In the beginning, some things will suck. And your goal is to try to fix and best meet your end user, in our case, patients' needs, wants, and desires. But you're continuously doing that.
And Ryan,
Um,
in the early days, when you were still building this, can you tell our audience of founders, like, what were the things that sucked that you really had to take care of before taking it to the next level?
yeah, payment. Like we started fee for service. Like nobody knew who we were. Like we're not going to get this like special value based economic deal. And so co-pays are always a barrier to care. And so like if someone has to pay a copay at every visit and telemedicine was just really being more and more accepted, you had people who really just wanted in-person care. And as you start to try to pull some of that together, some of that was just because of the finances. Like if I have to pay, I might as well just go in person. And that sentiment has greatly changed over the last 5 years. Then as we were experimenting with our model, our visits were too long. Like we were also trying to figure out, how does a physician and a physical therapist work together? Should they come together? Should the PT come first, then the physician? Should there be a coach? Should there not be a coach? How do you infuse cognitive behavioral therapy? And we were also just figuring out how to be most efficient to deliver the care and also get feedback from patients. So you're trying to practice medicine, make a real medical diagnosis. You're writing in a chart, but you're also experimenting a bit on the care of how you deliver. Oh, if you say this, you get a much better response. If you say this, what's evidence based, what's not evidence based? What is in essence the Vori way that majority of people love, and then build upon that. And how short and efficient can you get that without reducing the quality of care?
And
Because
how did
traditionally,
you, like, just curious, sorry to interrupt, like, did you use specific tools to assemble the feedback of the users back in the days? What they thought
a
about the
lot of it was
platform?
survey, calling
Hmm.
members, always asking people if they'd be willing to give candid feedback in the
You
moment.
literally called them out.
Yeah, just ask. The best time to ask somebody is right when you're looking them in the eye.
Ryan,
Would you
this
be
is the
willing
crazy
to?
thing. A lot of founders, they don't do these basic steps. For you, it sounds like it's pretty much instinctive. Like you're even laughing about it. Like, of course, I just called him. But a
Yeah.
lot of founders, just like Airbnb, think about them. Like they literally went door to door to the listings and took photos themselves because they thought photos sucked. And
Yeah.
in your case, you did something basic, just speak with your clients. And so many founders forget about that, just asking, hey, what am I doing wrong? What can I improve? What would make you stay with us for the next 2 years? Just basic things like these.
Yeah, exactly. And you can have other people doing that, but if you're the founder, make sure you talk to those people directly yourself. You can have other people also calling if you're trying. It's hard to call 10,000 people yourself, but
Yeah.
you need to also be talking directly, and and then you need to also just if you're not familiar with it, do some basic learning on design thinking, experiential design, because you also have to learn how to interview a user, because you can lead the witness. Your goal is not to lead the witness. Like your goal is not, do you like this feature? Like that's so boring. Like did you like the pink napkin versus the white napkin in the restaurant? Like nobody know, like that's not very helpful information. As compared to, how are they feeling? What made them frustrated, not frustrated? Because you could have the best experience within the care and self-management and the best clinicians. If signing up for your site sucks, that's the end. If it's too hard to get into the amusement park, no one's coming to the amusement park at large, even if they have the best rides.
Yeah.
And so making sure, and then call your own call center. How long does it take to answer?
Mm,
Are they nice? Did they solve your problems? Like, like pressure test your offering and see what
hmm.
people are experiencing as an end user. So go through the onboarding yourself, talk to the call center, go through the self sign up, go through the self scheduling, pressure test it. Where does it fall apart? Where do you get confused? If you're confused, well, that's a problem because if it's a technology based, you want the technology at large to be invisible because it's so frictionless. You want the technology to be invisible. The only time you notice Google is when it doesn't work, right?
True.
The only time that you notice Netflix is having a problem is it didn't log in or it crashed. And so you want majority of the technology to be invisible because it's just so easy to use. And so getting people to think through, and sometimes less is more. Simplifying is very, very hard. It's one of the hardest things to do because you have to really figure out what you're deleting. What do you not really need? Like if you ask your clinical team, they're going to want 1,000 questions on the onboarding screen so they can have all this information and be ready for their visit. That's a terrible experience for a patient. Who wants to fill out endless forms? Nobody. And so where is that balance to maximizing the quality of the visit and helping your clinical team do great as compared to like torturing your patient with a bunch of stuff they don't want to do,
Right.
where they just like eventually they just stop. And so how do you piece that together where it's the salient information? How do you split it apart? How do you think about getting the person's attention to sign up and schedule? And then what do you deliver to them so you don't scare them off? And really learning not just the experience, but then how do you talk about yourself? Because one of the other big things, companies in the beginning are not very good at describing what do you do in a sentence, not a paragraph. No person is signing up for your product if they have to read a paragraph. They're not. What do you do? And if you need a page to describe it, you're going to have no users.
That's so well said. I think a lot of startups out there, they overcomplicate the onboarding process, just like you've mentioned, and it can tank businesses really quickly. And on your side, like you've raised the seed round. Did you think already about going ahead for the Series A, or were you thinking about staying in the seed round for the runway period, which is like 20 to 24 months approximately? How did that happen?
I think about it as always be raising. And what I really mean by that is you're always building relationships with investors. And you raise money when you need it or when there's an opportune time. So sometimes you raise money because you need it. And if you're not profitable, your company will have to shut down, right? Because you need it to stay alive. Sometimes you're raising it because, wow, like we want to grow 3 times faster and we need more dollars to invest in these large clients that we were able to bring online. And so you have a new inflection point. Or sometimes it's offensive where we're going to raise this money to be offensive. It's not a defensive play of like stay alive and survive. Like this is to scale and thrive.
And did you already have revenue when you were raising the seed round, or you were
No,
still
not the seed.
pre-rev?
We had not
Oh,
like we're
wow.
like a deck. Nothing, hadn't seen
Okay.
any patients.
Interesting. Just you
Not
had like
just
an MVP, a demo, or okay, just a deck.
had not had a deck and my smile. No, no,
Amazing.
that had nothing. Like but he had a person who's from the space, who's like literally shutting their practice down to come in full time.
Wow.
And those types of things are helpful.
So sacrifice is a big signal for investors. Like you're literally sacrificing something big, and they know you're all in.
Right. They want to know that you're crazy enough to think you can pull it off. Because if you're on the investor side, yeah, like if I was on the when I think about investments I've made, I'd rather invest in an A team who has a C product or a C idea than the opposite, than an A product with a C level team. Like the team, it's an execution play. So is the team going to pull it off? Startups are really hard. Most fail. It's really hard to try to bring change. It's really hard to go from pitch deck to 1 million in revenue and then 10 million in revenue and just keep growing. Like it's not easy.
And
And
Ryan, I'm just curious, the seed round, it took you how many no's to actually get funded?
I'd have to go back, but you have to get used to rejection.
If you were to put, approximately a number, was it in the 50s, the hundreds, the 300s?
No, but this was not my first company. And if I went back to like first company is like, it was like really hard to get like $300,000. Like we're in the
When you're saying really hard, how hard was it? How many no's did you have to endure?
a lot. And at that time, that was before Zoom, not this company,
Oh my
ones
God.
before it, where you had to drive. You had to drive to the VC office and sit there. Like you couldn't run through 50 Zoom meetings in 2 weeks. Like you had to fly or drive and sit there in the office and then pitch, and it was just very different.
I'm just curious, because a lot of founders are rather young at this point. They're watching, they're probably between 24 all the way like in their 30s. So they didn't experience, the same type of environment you did back in the days. Like, do you have an approximate number of meetings that you did to finally get a yes for the previous business?
It was at least 20 or 30.
Okay,
But
not
but
not, not bad. Yeah.
but I think you have to also be very selective about the investors, right? So I didn't want to just work with anybody. It wasn't about like anybody money will do. It had to be smart money. Can they really help you through either helping you build a team, helping you see blind spots? Can they be a great mentor? Do they have a Rolodex to help you open a pipeline? Like, what is the investor bringing to the table that would make working with him or her a 1 + 1 = 3? Where it's not just money. Like the money's like, whatever. It's a relationship. It's a partnership. The
Yeah.
money is fuel for the business, but that's not the main thing, because you're giving up ownership in a company to be able to have access to capital. But it's not, the capital can't be the main thing you're doing. Otherwise, it's not a relationship. If it's like, then you should just take a loan, like, and just have no relationship and just pay, right? Like, if you're going to give up ownership in in your own company, who are you giving the ownership up to and why? And what does he or she bring to the table that you're like, you know what? It's worth giving up X amount of my company because this is so awesome. And it would be a privilege to work with him or her. And even if it didn't work out, I'm going to learn so much. And we will know that at least we did it. We gave our all to make it work.
And do you remember the most brutal change in your life that you had to do to go from the seed point all the way to Series A?
Well, there's more about just like your own identity, like going from like doing brain and spine surgery to giving that up is just, it's just a big change in terms of just like, oh, I don't go to the hospital anymore. I don't go to the operating room. I don't take call anymore. Um, and it's like you're retired from neurosurgery at the end of the day. But
Did you like the transition?
I like parts of it. I still miss operating. I don't miss being woken up at 2 in the morning to come do an emergency surgery. I don't miss this. I don't miss some of the administrative stuff, but I certainly miss helping people, and I love the operating room. But like I said before, you can't do it all together, and so that was certainly a transition. And then just listening to like all the extended family members and your own colleagues who just think you're an idiot. Why would you do that? Like, and then you just have to like be able to learn how to filter out the noise.
And Ryan,
Uh,
I want to stop you right there because you're touching on something so important that comes across the journeys of a lot of startup founders. This resistance. where people think you're completely nuts. Can you share some tips and advice that made you go through these moments where this, social doubt is almost pressuring you to not go and chase your dreams that you're building now? That's the crazy
Yeah,
thing.
a few things is you gotta have a lot of self-confidence. You try not to have arrogance, but they can cross over. Is when someone tells me no, that's usually sometimes fuel where I'm actually motivated. Oh, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Particularly if it's someone that's a former boss. Like I had a former boss laugh at me about starting some of these companies. That actually was very motivating to be like, I'm gonna. I didn't like him either, but I didn't like him as a boss, and I'm gonna prove to you that you're wrong. And that was also motivating in a sort of sometimes maybe a vindictive way, but it was fuel to just prove, well, I'm gonna do it anyway, and I think you're wrong. Uh, and it gets back to that passion. Do you have conviction? If the folks who are saying no have never built something before, you have to also understand who's saying no. So if all the people who are saying no have never built a company before, what do they really know on building a company side? But it doesn't mean that they don't have some advice about how you maybe make it better. But you have to tease out who you're getting advice from, and you don't have to be mean to people and say thank you very much and then never do anything with it. If you want to be an astronaut, you should go talk to astronauts. Like a college counselor who's never been an astronaut is not that useful to tell you how to be an astronaut. Like
It
they
seems
don't
so
have that experience.
basic. It seems so basic, but just people, they completely forget about this fact. And there's a really good quote by Henry Ford: whether you think you believe you can or you think you believe you can't, you're right
You're right.
in both
No, you're right.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's a
It,
mindset, and like if you want to be,
yeah.
and people also have to just be careful because they'll talk to people who are like really smart. They're like, oh look, they have a PhD or an MD or a JD. It does it's whatever.
Yeah.
Is that person have any experience in the question you are asking him or her?
Hmm.
And if the answer is no, it's just it's a superficial opinion most likely. So just because so they could be the world's best astrophysicist and they're going to know really good stuff and knowledge about astrophysics. But if you're asking them how to how to build ships, what are they
Forget about it.
like
Yeah.
I feel like shipping containers, like what do they know? Like that's not the right expert. So
Yeah.
who are
And
you
people
getting
get
advice
confused.
from?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They get
people get
confused,
confused like, oh, this really
between.
smart person.
Exactly. Like
This really smart
it's
person said no.
even if it's someone that's very close to them, maybe family or relatives or old friends, they get confused by the signals where, oh, well, I really trust that person, or it's my mom and she loves me, she just wants to protect me, something like that, right? So these signals are not to be confused. You literally have to, go ahead and talk with people that either failed or maybe know the ins and outs of this specific market. Keep on going forward. Amazing. Ryan, so much gold so far. What an interesting journey. And I'm curious at this point, let's say we're going to go into the Series A side. How did you get to convince investors? And can you also share the amount with our audience that you were raising at that point?
Yeah, Series A for this was also around 50.
Wow.
Is they're all about inflection points. So like your seed round is to try to test a hypothesis that there's legs. So at each different domain is you're looking for a few things. One, how big is the market? And how big do you think you can actually service or make an impact as you scale? Who's the team? And then what are proof points along the way? Like at Series A, like you should have users, right? That might be a little bit different in the AI world where there's like, where people are like frenzy right now and will invest in all sorts of stuff. But typically you will have users, you have some product market fit, or you're still finding it, but you have a signal that it's moving in the right direction. And you also have understanding of what's working and what's not working. And you can articulate to an investor what works, what doesn't work, because people try to hide the stuff that doesn't work. That's sometimes the most interesting things for investors to sometimes hear. They want to know that the founders and management team are thinking about stuff that's not working, because nothing goes to plan. Everything usually takes more time than you think it will and more money. And I know some founders out there that sometimes in their pitch deck will have a slide. Not this is rare, but sometimes they will. These are the 10 reasons you should not invest in me. And just show it right to the investor. Like, if you don't want to do this, then we're not a right fit for each other. And we'll just come straight out like that.
And did you do that with the Series A? You already put up the 10 reasons for which you could simply not be a fit for them?
Yeah, some of this was like on the investors who are like, what type of healthcare investor are they? Because there are investors who are just SaaS, it's just software. That's very different from, I'm actually going to be in medical practice with licensed physicians and clinicians that's actually going to deliver care, write prescriptions, make diagnoses, and we're actually going to be a professional entity. And so some investors in healthcare have never, ever done care delivery. They're in healthcare. So where are they in healthcare? Then within the care deliveries arm, what have they done? And so as you're thinking about who can drive value, who's lived and breathed this, loves it, likes it, had a track record, and really can speak the language. And so also was very selective with the type of investors I wanted to meet with. And the list of folks was relatively small. It wasn't 1,000 investors. It wasn't even 100. It was actually sub 50. These are the investors who I think, and then as you actually narrow the list, as you start to it's really become sub 20. These are the investors who would be great partners and really help accelerate the company, not just from a capital standpoint, but been there, done that, have seen this in their 10 other portfolio companies. They have 4 other companies who are struggling with the same thing and can help quickly cross-pollinate lessons and really try to be more of a not just an investor, but really help the company
And Ryan,
accelerate.
did it happen? So, a lot of founders, they try to find these investor matches. Did you see it actually materialize where they pitched in difficult moments and helped out? So maybe you can
Yeah, yeah.
discuss it. Yeah.
Some of our larger investors we meet with every other week still. Just helpful. They're helpful in a good way of, hey, we're getting stuck. We're getting stuck in negotiating this deal. It's just there's been turnover inside of the client. Our main stakeholder went through a riff, or in essence, are you connected to anybody to try to not lose the momentum because our main stakeholder from the client is on their way out? And sometimes the answer is, oh yeah, I know, because you have to, if you want good answers, doesn't matter if this is from your investor, your family, your friends. If you want better answers, ask better questions. Like, it's not very helpful to someone to say, do you know anybody in the field? That's way too generic. And people aren't really going to go through their entire Rolodex at night and sit through versus, do you know anybody at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Michigan that you're friendly with? That's a very specific ask for a very specific client versus, do you know anybody in any health plan, is way too generic. And maybe they do, but that's just too generic versus the more specific your question, the faster the answer you're going to get. And it helps just clue people in terms of like, what does they ask? And so then from there, it's just, now you have to prove your clinical outcomes. If you have to show that there's return on investment. You have to show that you can outcompete your competitors. You have to show that there's a way to get paid. And as you're in Series A, you need to find client. There's product market fit, Then there's client market fit, which is different.
What's the
Um,
biggest difference?
Product market fit, in my mind, is do the end user, whoever uses your product, whether that's a patient, a user, loves it, loves it, loves it, uses it, it's sticky, they'll refer their friends and family, and the end user is just really, really enjoys it, and you're meeting their unmet need. And they'll pay you for it. They'll pay you. Somebody will pay for them to use it. Client market fit is sales. So in health, in our side, this is a B2B2C model. So the patients are coming through self-insured employers and health plans that we negotiate deals with, because we don't really take fee for service anymore. We're really just value-based care. So does the sales and marketing team know what to do, are able to consistently sell, know what works, what doesn't work? Have you done premortems and postmortems? So, and we still do this. Why did we lose that deal? Wow. What did we learn from it? Why did we win? Why did we win that deal? What did we learn from that? And continuously refining the playbook. When it's rinsable and repeatable, now you can hire a sales team, because it's rinsable, it's repeatable, you can make it bigger. And then you just have to understand when you're early, because people think through, should I hire a head of sales or chief commercial officer? Well, it depends where you are. If you have no idea how to pitch to a client yet and get a deal, you either have to learn that as the founder, and because you should be like the chief salesperson in the beginning. Otherwise, if that's not a skill set of yours and you're just really bad at it, then you can try to find a chief head of sales who's like a Davy Crockett, who can help you forge the path through the forest where there's no path and get that process streamlined, which is very different from other salespeople who can't do that but are really good at selling when there's a foundation already there. So making sure you're parsing through when you hire people. There's people who are really good at different stages. Are they able to build a foundation from scratch in their domain? Not everybody can do that. And often the people who are really good at building the foundation are not always good at scaling. And often the people who are really good at scaling are not very good at building a foundation. Sometimes people are good at both, but they usually are different people.
So well said. And I cannot resist but to ask, how did you celebrate when you actually raised that 50 mil for the Series A? When you saw that capital hit your bank account, what happened in your mind? And what did you
No,
do that day?
you're excited for like a day. You have a glass of champagne, and then now the stakes are higher and it's back to work. So it's good to celebrate the wins with the team, both big and small. Wins are fuel for not only for yourself, but progress is what keeps people moving forward. And if you just think about when you have a good day or a bad day, when you have a good day, you made progress. Good things happen. You completed all these things that were open. You won an RFP. You got this. You want like good things happened. When you have a bad day, there was usually a setback. That's usually what made we lost this, and or these team members are in a conflict, and you have to mediate it. And you think about your own life of when you have a good day or a bad day. Good day, there was progress usually, and bad day, there was a setback. And so just knowing that little bit, celebrate the progress. It's fuel. And just getting people to think through the things that give yourself fuel and progress, also do the same for your team. So the small wins are powerful fuel.
Absolutely. Wow, so many golden nuggets here. Literally, you dropped bombs today on the episode. I love that. And I'm just curious if you could whisper one thing to yourself, at day one of building this business, what would you say?
It's a great question. If I could go back, I would get crisper on what is my personal mandate. And what I mean by that is, what is the only thing that you can do? Because in the beginning, if you're the only person, like you're doing everything. But as you start to grow and your job evolves, what are the only things that you can do that no one else will be able to do? And do you have that clear of what your mandate is? Because it will allow you to focus better. It will also allow you to hire better. Um, and really to understand what your mission vision is down. Like, are you able to describe what your mission, which is separate from the vision, in a sentence that someone on the subway can understand? Because the more time you spend giving clarity in the written word, the more clear it will be for your team. So I think going back of more clarity gets, because if your team is 98% aligned, it's not enough. They need to be 100%. And so you need ultra clarity, and need to understand that everybody understands what the mission is and what does it mean to them, because people interpret things differently. And so I think going back, it gets back into ultra clarity, and then using that as a pressure test of what are you saying no to when you prioritize. So like when we prioritize, we'll make a list of priorities. We also make like the anti-priority list of these are things we're not going to do, and make sure it's clear to people. Doesn't mean we won't ever do them. It doesn't mean they're not important, but you can't do everything at once. And so like if you have a list of 100 things, nothing's prioritized.
Yeah.
What are your top three? Your top three things? Maybe five, but like what are those top? You can't really do more than that well. You can have 1,000 tasks that roll up to that over time and they go in order. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. But really getting clear, in essence, goes back to simplification. You have to simplify your product. You have to simplify your onboarding, simplify your message, simplify your internal mandate, simplify the vision and the mission that the team's ascribing to, so that everything rolls up to it and connects with ultra clarity.
Absolutely. Wow. What a perfect way to end this amazing episode. Ryan, it was such a pleasure to have you here with us, share so many tactics and tips and interesting story, background, behind the curtains type of details. It's really, quite a luxury to have you on the show. Very, very appreciated. So thanks for joining us today, everyone. Thanks for watching this episode. If you found this helpful, hit that like and subscribe button. All right. See you in the next one. Cheers.
Thank you.